Hello everyone! My name is Alexia, and today I'll be explaining Glenn Bearna Primeval Winter. This version of Glenn Bearna is currently the hardest endgame content, and I've broken up the run into 3 phases. There are the rooms leading up to the mini-boss, and then the final boss. Later in the video, I'll show clips of every mechanic listed in this visual, but let me briefly explain what we're in for first. The rooms leading up to the mini-boss are identical to hard mode, but I'll still share details on some tips and tricks later in this video. The mini-boss and final boss phases for this version of Glenn are very different from Glenn Bearna hard mode. The mini-boss is similar to the underground boss in Glenn Bearna hard mode, where she doesn't move, you can't use potions, and what's new is there's a not so scary thick grandma that appears. We'll get into that. The final boss phase is tough because it really takes a group effort to clear this content. I have highlighted in red the parts that most parties struggle with and die in. For party build, you'll likely want 2 to 3 saints in your party to continuously use harmonic saint skills and spam party heal. There's an incredible difference in how smoothly the runs go with a good saint versus an inexperienced saint. Be sure to be kind to your saints, there are few around. If you have high DPS in your party with endgame ruin gear and max stats, you can probably get away with 3 saints, and that seems to be pretty popular right now amongst the parties that clear. I'd recommend 3 saints to practice if you fall into this category. Otherwise, 2 saints may help the more difficult parts of the run move faster with more damage. Before we even start talking about the rooms and phases, let's talk about what you personally need to be fully prepared on your own to join a party. First, you want to make sure you have multiple pets with rank 1 Fin Mastery and a high Divine Link skill as close to max as possible. This is going to help your pet stay alive longer and take aggro away from you so that you, then in turn, can live longer too. It's highly recommended that at this point you have Link 10 Arcana, finished skills, Grandmasters, Stardust, all of the things that you personally have control over. Make sure that you're prepared. You also want to make sure you have as much protection as possible, which you can find in your character window. You can also temporarily increase your protection by making caters, as in catering dishes, with 10 udon dishes from the food truck pet. It's pretty popular to do. You want to prepare your techs, remnants, glyphs, full recovery potions, and iframes. Iframes can include personas, anchor rush, grapple shot, transformation, and so on. I personally use the Stardust blow skill fairly often the first few rooms of the run, because if mobs get too close to me and I need to survive a couple of seconds, it does help a lot, so I would recommend hotkeying that as well. This is just a brief list of reminders, as I think most people watching this video are going to be aware of the general preparation items this late in the game. I'll be sure to try to make a more extensive guide for Glenn Bearna hard mode later with more beginner-friendly details, and once I'm done with that, I'll try to link the video in the description. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. To enter Glenn Bearna Primeval Winter, you need to have at least 2 embers and firewood on both sides to enter the run. You'll need to kill 2 deer on both day and night side, and not get your embers or firewood stolen by another deer if they charge you. If you want to skip ahead to the new mechanics, just skip to the time that you see on the screen. I'll see you there. In the first room, there are 2 waves. The first one's straightforward, you attack things, and then you make it to the second wave. On the second wave, you want to focus on plants on both day and night size to help the room work faster. I recommend putting longer damage attacks on large plants like Vortex, Terra Scourge, things like that, or Chaser, as you need people hitting larger plants on both sides to defeat them. And then I would focus on smaller plants when you only do ones to big plants. Coordinating with the team is key because hitting the same plants on both sides will make it way faster. In the second room, you'll get 2 out of 4 random waves, the first of which is Paradox, which is a simple DPS room. Another one is Divergence, where the Yeti at the front of the room will roar if the difference in damage done by day and night sides becomes too great. Again, focusing on plants here works really well. Also, if you're a Harmonic Saint, you can save your party by trying to Blessing of Protection when the Yeti does roar if the Divergence gets too great. The third type of room is Cats, where you kill cats of your side to gain 5% completion of the wave all the way through 100%. Day kills day cats, night kills night cats. It's pretty straightforward. Cats is much faster for alchemic sharpshooters, as there is a short time frame for when the cats are around. Lastly, the fourth type of wave you can get is Dogs. For dogs, you want a DPS to about 24% on both sides, day and night, before the dog spawn. Day has to kill day dogs and night needs to kill night dogs, but the opposite side's dogs will spawn first. To send dogs in the portal, you just stun them. You can use Crash Shot, Chaser, you can summon a pet, Spinning Slasher, Rage Impact, and so on. The last room before the mini boss is the Yeti room. The first part is simple DPS, and the braziers will light up and kill anything in its way. You'll see red circles on the ground, but those braziers will also kill the mobs that are in the way, so it can be good for you. Just simply anchor rush or grapple shot out of the way to not get hit by the brazier. For the second part of the Yeti room, I recommend divine linking to your pet and having your pet sit in the middle of the room with Floral Shield. That way the mobs can stay together and it's easier to kill them. For every 5 mobs you defeat, the braziers in the corners will light up and you can click on any of the braziers to hit the Yeti. Many of the Yeti iframes have been removed by now, so you can just spam click the brazier. 4 brazier hits defeats 1 Yeti, and then you need to kill 2 Yetis to complete the room. After you've killed 2 Yetis on your side, you can simply use Fate Weaver 4 on yourself to hide momentarily and then play dead. After both sides have finished the Yeti mechanic, a brazier will actually spawn on the ground and you'll have to click it to enter Glenn Bearna Primeval Winter. At this time, if anyone in the party needs to go potty, it is time. Also, make sure if you click on the brazier, you click on the right selection. There are ways to enter regular hard mode, and then there's Primeval Winter. The right button is burn all ember and firewood, which is on the second to the right side, and it'll only show that option if you have 2 embers and 2 firewood on either side, which are obtained from killing deer in earlier rooms. You'll then fight the barrier or eliminate 4 braziers in the corners of the room to stand in the red circle in the center of the room, so then the opposite team can do damage to the barrier. You'll both hit the barrier, and then there's a 3rd barrier that shows up, you both fight it, and then off you go into the mini boss phase. During the mini boss phase, there's a floating orb boss in the underground world. You'll know because it's black and white on the screen. So you can't drink potions, and once you start hitting, a random thick old grandma's gonna suddenly appear. Don't get scared, she just gives you chill stacks. It's totally chill, especially if you have saints. The important thing to note is that you will need to lure the old thick grandma to your desired location before hitting 10% HP and triggering the final battle. That's because wherever the thick grandma is, she'll actually transform into the brazier for a deer mechanic later in the game. Having the brazier away from the center of the room lessens the risk of it spawning in red circles. For us, we lure the brazier south, but some people prefer north or another location. The final boss is where the exciting part starts. So at 80%, that's the first mechanic, there's a hit counter where you have about 20 seconds to complete the hit counter and step in lights that will spawn in a circle formation. If a player fails to make it to a circle by the end of the mechanic, they will be permanently dead and their lifeline will be reduced to 0%. You really do not want to be the one to fail this phase. Also note that if 2 people enter the same light, the light will disappear and you won't have enough lights to protect every player. It's imperative that you know your light locations before even starting the run. At 70%, swords drop from the sky just like in Glen Hard mode, but the mechanic moves way more quickly. This throws people off. So the swords at 70% will fall on night party members, and 30% they fall on day party members. And she tries to kill people with swords very soon after. It's recommended you step into the puddle to become a crystal wherever the sword fell, or you can be the person to stand behind the crystal, only 1 person behind each crystal, or you can iframe to survive. You can infra, demigod, persona like Shylock step, any kind of iframe. If you want to risk it, if you're an anchor rusher or grapple shotter in hard mode, honestly, I would not recommend doing it your first few runs because you probably want that lifeline for what's coming up. Now the fun part begins. At 60%, Dark Kaliach comes out to play, and this is probably where I see most parties fail. You do need to read Brio and Prag and debuff as it's an entirely new boss. Dark Kaliach has a special skill unique to her, which are black tornadoes, and they'll appear and knock you back. They are incredibly annoying, especially at the final 20% of the run. I recommend putting some distance between yourself and the tornadoes, or if you have extra saints, someone can Blessing of Protection or drop a Pulse of Purification to give you temporary Iron Will. Falling swords are a fun new mechanic that remind me of the green puddles in Theta. You'll see a circle loading under you that will place a falling sword wherever the circle lands once that circle has finished loading, and it'll give you both knockback and infinite chill stacks for however long you stand in the sword circle. You really want to prepare to stack these around the edges of the room because you'll want control of the center of the room for the final 20%. The best way to dodge these are to use Shield of Trust, anchor or grapple into an existing circle, then anchor or grapple on the way out. The timing can be tricky, and if this is difficult at first, you can run to the edge of the map, Shield of Trust, and then anchor rush or grapple shot out right at the last second when the circle is about 98% full. There is an unavoidable doom counter on the upper right of the screen that will kill the whole party if the deer mechanic is not completed before the counter hits 0. So you're like, what is the deer mechanic? Well, for the deer mechanic, you have to touch all the lights on the map to spawn a deer, and then you kill it to receive either an ember or a firewood. Whether you receive an ember or firewood depends on whether that party member that killed the deer is on day or night side. Day receives ember while night receives firewood. It's important to note that embers, aka the day side, must always touch the brazier first to light it. You'll know that this has been done when there's a laser beaming from the fire pit. After there's a laser beaming from the fire pit, you can have night touch the brazier with a firewood to complete the deer mechanic and increase the doom timer. Note that when you complete the deer mechanic and the doom timer starts increasing, you're gonna be back in the black and white version of the run again where you can't use potions. Sometimes it can be helpful for the night person to remind the party to use potions right before they're about to touch the brazier because other party members probably don't know what's about to happen. After a period of time, the map's gonna be in full color again and the doom counter will start counting down again. And the deer mechanic must be done again. If you don't have enough DPS, you can literally get stuck in endless loops of the deer mechanic and fail. You got this though. So at 30%, swords will drop again, but this time on day side, and the timing is identical to the 70% swords mechanic. Keep in mind that the doom mechanic is still going at this time, right? Because the doom mechanic doesn't stop until 20%. So it's important that you time the swords so that you don't accidentally die to doom. At 20%, you can feel the end is near, but this is very difficult too. So at 20%, Eternal Winter begins, which is similar to the final 15% of Glenn Bearna hard mode, where for every second you're out of the cuddle puddle, you'll take an additional chill stack that will drain your health. What's different about 20% is that there are the flying swords that will still choose one person, it's going to drop on them, and what will happen is if you take too long and you don't know how to stack the swords, you're going to end up running out of map space and it will be a disaster. So you really want to practice staying together in a group, making sure that you're able to stack swords reasonably and that the Saint is spamming party heal at this time. Vivace and spamming. I do recommend using Iron Will to help with knockback in the final 20% of the run. I actually have another technique set that I switched to during the final 20% of the run to have Iron Will just to help me stay with the group and in the puddle. You can hotkey switching between technique sets in your hotkey settings as well. So that's it for this guide. I hope this guide helps you and your team to clear Glenn Bearna Primeval Winter soon. Right now, I have been hosting and streaming public Glenn Bearna hard mode runs every Wednesday night, and I'm also hoping that this guide will help people prepare for the run so that I can stream public Glenn Bearna Primeval Winter runs very soon. If you're interested in joining any of my parties, you can check out my Twitch at AlexiaT, or there is the link below. Thanks, and good luck. You got this.